everyone, it's BB again. Well guys, I'm coming at you today to show you how to make the basic Cobra stitch bracelet, but in using two different colors. So let's go ahead and start by talking about what you need to put this together. You need a good pair of scissors. You may need a pair of pliers. I'll talk about that in a moment. You need definitely a good lighter or torch. You need a buckle. You can make one without, but we're going to use a buckle for this one. You need something to measure your paracord and your wrist with. You don't have to have a jig, but I'm going to use a jig for this setup. And of course you need some length of paracord. Now the length of the wrist is going to determine the amount of paracord that you are going to need. So let me go ahead and get some of these tools out of the way so you can see better. So let's move all these out of the way. And we'll be coming back to that in a moment. Now, excuse me, the bracelet I'm going to make today is going to be around 8 to 8.5 inches. And the way I measured that is I took my ruler here, my tape measure, and I just wrapped it around my wrist until I got it set there. And you can see it's just about 8. But I like to give about a 1/2 inch, sometimes an inch depending, but I usually get to give about a 1/2 inch for a little bit of room because your cord, your paracord is going to be a little thick and it's going to take up some of that space. So you don't want it to be extremely tight. You want it to be comfortable when you get it on and not cut off any circulation in your hand. So I like to go about a 1/2 inch. Some people go an inch. You know, that's personal preference when it comes down to that. So then I set my jig to 8.5 inches. As you can see, it's set here. Now, the rule of thumb is for every inch, it should equal 1 foot of paracord. So if you're doing one color, I should have 8.5 feet of paracord. But since I'm doing two colors, I want to half that and have that in each color. So I would have 4.25 inches in each color. And I measure that off and then I cut it. Now what I also do, which is a little different, is I make one of my colors a little bit longer than I need to. And I'll show you here what I'm talking about. I make it slightly longer. You see the red one is slightly longer, and that's for when I'm starting to my bracelet so I can hide where I singe it together. Now, to connect the two together, let me move the jig out of the way for a moment. To connect the two together, all I do is I make a clean cut on both of my strands. This is when a good pair of scissors comes in very handy. A clean cut. Then, holding the two pieces, I take my lighter or torch and I begin to melt the ends. Not to the point where they catch on fire, but just where they start to melt. And then I just put those two ends together, let it sit for a second, then I come back, I wet my fingers, and I push that down so it doesn't have a real large area there, and I let that cool just for a second. Now there are several different ways of connecting paracord together. I'm not going to get all into that as far as showing you the different methods. There's people that's already going to do that for you. This is, to me, the simplest method out there. Just a singe and it glues itself together, and it's going to be just as strong as if it was made that way. There's the Manny method. There's people that use super glue. Like I said, there are so many different ways. We don't have time to go through them all right now. But this is the way that I'm going to use, the basic way for the basic paracordist. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my buckle, and I'm going to use the curved buckle, and I'm going to use the female end is where I'm going to start. So I'm going to start with by giving myself that little extra 3 or 4 inches by moving my singe mark to there. And then using my buckle, I'm going to push it down through like so, and then take my ends and go through it like this. So when I'm done, this is what I have. Okay, you notice my singe mark is up here. You can, if you want to, you can adjust it if you want it down further. You just push it down and pull, and you can basically place it anywhere you want. Now, if I did it right, it should be about the same length on each side. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Now, one other hint that I like to give, it's okay to have too much cord than not enough. So I usually cut mine a little bit longer than need to. And that's so that it just makes my life a little bit easier. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut these two ends because they're frayed and it's going to be difficult to feed through the other end. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to singe these down just a little. That just makes it a little easier for getting it through this part here. And I'm going to flatten it down. Alright, now it's time for the jig. Move the scissors out of the way. Alright, using my jig, I'm going to take my buckle apart. Using the female end, I'm going to stick on this end here. Okay, and then before I put the other one end, I'm going to go ahead and feed this through. You see, by having that singed and flattened, it goes through a lot easier. Pull that down and go ahead and feed through. Some have one, some have two. It doesn't really matter. Depends on what, which ones you have. As far as the buckles are concerned, it really is not a big deal on that one. Alright, then I'm going to go ahead and give me a little bit of slack and attach it up there, and then just pull it down and tighten it. Okay, you don't want it too loose, but you don't want it too tight. Now, to start your basic Cobra stitch, you do just like you did before, but now you have two different colors. Now it depends on which color you want to be in the center and which one you want to be on the outside. If you want the color to be in the center, you want to start with that color going over. If you want it to be on the outside, you use the other color. So I'm going to put the white in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and go over. I'm going to take my left hand side, go over my white. I'm going to go under the bracelet like this. Follow me? And then taking the end, I'm going to come back up through the white, making a knot, as you can see, and then pulling it tight all the way up. Now you want to make sure that your first one is really good and tight, and they all are tight. Now the way I remember which one I'm going over is wherever this little hump is right here, this little knot, that's the one that needs to go over, especially if you're using just one color. So I go back over, this time from the left to the right, take my red, and I'm going over. I come under and through the white. As you can see, there's my knot, and I pull it tight again. And you just continue to do that until you get all the way to the end. Now, as you're doing this, you can push it up and tighten it up. I want to make sure mine's good and tight because I don't want it to come apart or come loose. And the tighter it is, the better it looks, in my opinion. It doesn't look like it was just thrown together. But don't get discouraged if that happens to you, because it's going to happen. My first couple bracelets I made were terrible. They were absolutely terrible. But it's a learning process. You're not going to get it first time. You're not going to be able to do all the fancy stuff the first time. I still don't do a lot of the fancy stuff. I like just doing the simple things. Just makes my life a little easier. I do this primarily as a hobby, as a stress reliever. I don't do this professionally to make money. I don't go to shows. I don't sell paracord. I tried to at one time, and I just didn't like doing it. It just wasn't for me. it took the fun out of it for me. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, it's not a bad thing to sell paracord products. I think that's great. If you can make a living at it and you enjoy doing that, that's awesome. But for me, it's more of a stress reliever, more of a hobby. I can sit here after a long day of teaching and make a couple bracelets or little paracord dudes or something like that, and it just makes me feel better. It makes me, you know, just get my mind off of things for the day. And most of the stuff I make, I usually just give it away. Some things I keep, I give to my daughter. She takes to her friends at school, or she actually sits down and helps me make a few things. And it's nice to know that, you know, if you want to make something for yourself, you can. You don't have to go to the store and buy one. You know, they make these bracelets you can buy at the store. And honestly, they're cheaply made in China, and I don't like those. You can tell the quality of them. But you can see how, as I go down, it covers the singe mark, and you can move it down further if you want to cover a little bit better than that. And you just keep going down until you get to the very end, like so. Now that you're done, now we have to finish it off. So what I like to do is go ahead and take it off the jig, and move my jig out of the way. Go ahead and get my scissors and my lighter. Now, there are other different ways you can do this. Some like to tuck them in, super glue them. I use the basic lighter. It's the way I learned, and it's the easiest for me. Just go ahead and cut it off closely, not too much, but close enough. And then do the same to the other side. So when you're done, you have something like this. Then taking your lighter, sends that down, and I like to use a pair of scissors to roll that over so there's no sharp edges. You don't want something sharp cutting into your wrist while you're wearing it and it'd be uncomfortable. Do the same thing to the other side. Like that. And there you go. You are done. You have just made yourself a two-colored Cobra stitch bracelet. Now if you use the straight buckles, it can be double-sided. So you can see how if you had the red in the center, that's what it would look like. And there's the white in the center. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's all you have to do to make a simple two-colored Cobra stitch bracelet. Well guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, please put those down in the comment section below. And until next time guys, this is BB. I'll see you guys later. Bye now.